Radio Free Skaro.
Hello everyone, welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 769. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
Riley Silverman joins us on the our Series 12 commentaries today with Can You Hear Me? That's happening later. Also, news about Doctor Who returning to production. How about that?
All this and more on the next exciting episode of Radio Free Skaro.
Radio Free Skaro. First, though, I mean, last week, we're recording this again on a Friday afternoon. We recorded Friday afternoon last week when the U.S. election wasn't official, but we were sort of like leaning towards it. And then it happened. Saturday was like amazing because there were people literally dancing in the streets. And I was like just watching like CNN like all day, seeing I got legitimate. Everyone was like tweeting videos of Yub Dub and I'm thinking the one time that I felt more connected to the special edition with all the Coruscant and that weird pan flute music going on in the background. I thought that actually,
Yub Nub's still the better.
It's still the better song, but I like, there were literal people like they were just dancing. They're like just random spontaneous acts. And I as I was watching that, I got a Coruscant vibe from the special edition, but also I'm thinking, if you are responsible for people literally dancing in the streets when you are removed from office, you are in Doctor Who villain territory right there.
You certainly are.
And so it made me happy. That made me happy. The speeches made me, just watching just the catharsis happening all across America and parts of the world as well. It reminded me very much of something that I still think is probably the greatest thing that's ever been said about Doctor Who, and it was by Craig Ferguson, about how Doctor Who is the triumph of romance and intellect over brute force and cynicism. And that is exactly the feeling I had as I was watching all that sort of play out, Like there's been nothing but spite and pettiness and just like there's no joy in the last 4 years, and all of a sudden like we just had it. We're in the middle of a pandemic, but like everyone for the most part played it safe, unless you're at the Notre Dame football game later that night. It just seemed like a happy occasion. It just felt like this is weird. What about, I almost felt like Matt Smith at the end of the Dr. Winter of the Wardrobe, like happy tears. What's this? Like, I don't understand what this means. And
what's it like not being scared anymore?
I know, and then we got a ways to go yet. And like the pandemic is getting the darkest before the dawn with like an actual vaccine possibly very much on its way. And, things are brightening up. But we'll still have to go through some real bad things to get there. So I hope you're enjoying being in your home right now from now until April.
Bad things like basically Christmas being canceled.
Canceled.
I saw that one of the main one of the companies that owns a large number of malls in Canada has said no Santas at the malls.
Good.
And I know the UK has more or less said that as well. Parts, if not the entirety.
Yeah, well, listen, if so what? So you can't maintain a tradition this 1 year. Guess how many people you get to save by not doing that, Mm-hmm. My parents are old. My dad is 82.
My dad's 78.
I won't be seeing them this Christmas. When you get to 82 and my mom's 75, when you get that old, you don't know when the last Christmas is, to quote a Doctor Who episode.
Everyone's Christmas is last. Every Christmas is someone's last Christmas.
Yeah, and that is on my mind a little bit. But like, I'm not going to ensure that it's the last Christmas by getting together, because that will make sure that it's the last Christmas.
Not until you make sure their will's in order.
To turn it dark. Thank you.
Yeah. Because I started it. Yeah.
I know. It's funny because we've been recording. All of our commentaries are done. We recorded them. They are. If you're a Patreon subscriber, you get them early. I think this Wednesday sees episode 9 coming out. Episode 7 of course coming out with this episode, so we're releasing about 2 weeks in advance. And at the time, we were very much worried about the future, and being us, we can't not refer to current events on that exact time and date as we record them. And so I'm happy that I feel like we're more pessimistic about the future recording those commentaries than perhaps we needed to be. But I suppose it's better to play it safe, though. Onto the main story, really, is which Doctor Who is actually back in production as of November 2nd, according to the clapperboard on the header image there on the BBC press release from it. Doctor Who Series 13 will be 8 episodes long, so 3 shorter than usual, with 10 episodes and a holiday special. Because of because of the measures they have to go through, basically, to make episodes. They'll basically shoot for the same amount of time, but because of all the limitations that they have to sort of dance around and stuff to make this thing, it's going to take longer to make a single episode. I'm curious. Yeah, go ahead, Warren.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I saw a Not My Doctor type saying, well, it must be because the show's so woke, it's only down to 8 episodes. I'm like, it's because COVID.
Read that.
That's why it's
do you not know that there's a pandemic going on? Yeah, no, it's
Occam's razor.
Yeah. What is kind of,
Yeah.
I mentioned, the vaccine and stuff, and how lots of countries seem somewhat safe in assuming that that the average population might be getting a vaccine, and outside of frontline workers and the vulnerable population might get it first, obviously, but the actual the rest of the population will be getting it maybe the second quarter, spring. And what's kind of tragic is that I bet literally just as Doctor Who production would be wrapping up is probably when everyone's going to be have a jab of their arm with a vaccine.
So they better make more of it immediately after that.
I know, they just have to keep going. It's let's just make a whole bunch more. It doesn't work that way. So that's unfortunate. It's kind of unfortunate. I mean, there's no good timing for a pandemic, but Doctor Who being produced where it is and when it is probably the worst possible timing. But yeah,
as Chibnall talks about, though, at least they've had the ability to still virtually hold meetings and script development and do all that kind of stuff. So that's that hasn't really suffered as much. Although I suppose it's got to be tough to manage that sort of stuff when you don't know how many you're going to produce. He says maybe 8.
Yeah, I know. He wasn't even firm with that, was he?
He says
Doctor Magazine. Yeah.
They expect to end up with 8 episodes.
Yeah.
So it could still be 7, could be 8, could be 9, could be who knows what. But at the end of the day, if you're planning scripts and you maybe don't have a firm knowledge of how many scripts you're producing, then it's going to be tough, because as much as anything, continuity pieces will have to be taken from here and put over to there, and scripts rewritten and plot lines rejiggered and casting and whatever. Things like that will affect literally everything.
I wonder if they how do you do that? Let's say they only get to make 7.
Yeah.
Which episode gets the cut?
Which episode gets the cut? How do you redistribute that information?
Yeah.
What penalties do you have to pay because you maybe put down a deposit on a filming location? Or
actors or crew or anything like that. There's a lot to think about about how they will go about this. Or do they look at it maybe we could do 2 extra? But it's not hey, let's just make 2 extra episodes of Doctor Who. That's not necessarily how any TV drama works. It's just because things have a bit of a dramatic arc to things, and it's kind of tough to sort of suddenly cram something on at the end of it.
And let's say they aim for 8 and they wrap the 8 up in a shorter amount of time than they wanted. Is there still any ability to expand that to 9 or 10? Can they book locations? Can they write scripts? Can they change things around? Because the one good thing about Doctor Who is it does spend a lot of time in post generally. Yeah. So you can still take chunks of episode X and cut and paste into episode Y, and restring the narrative and whatever in ways like that, which you don't have to worry about during filming proper, but you still need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
What I'm happy about is we're gonna see a return to the crowd scenes of Peladon et al. Because they can't put more than 4 or 5 people in.
That's true. There's gonna be a lot of CG'd crowd scenes or something like that, basically. And this what's really fascinating is, like, I imagine, like, let's say they wrap on, or they're getting close to wrapping on production of these 8 episodes. And like and then there's a vaccine or something like that. Like, do they immediately say, well, let's make series 14 basically right now. Let's do it. Let's get, or like even like a half a season or something like that. Like, is that something that they would do? Like, let's put another 6 episodes out there, you know?
Do you keep if you're filming 8, do you hold back the 8th one for a Christmas, New Year's kind of thing? Or do you film all 8 and, we now have a vaccine, let's power through a 9th and make that one the holiday one?
I think that's probably a good bet right there, because I think because the intention is for series 13 to air in the autumn of 2021, which is about when we expected it, really, when you're going into production when they are. So yeah, I would think that they could easily to do a holiday special is probably the best possible scenario if you're going to immediately get back into production, because you're writing a one-off episode anyway for the most part. You know, the holiday specials have mostly been standalones. So I think that's probably what they would do. And maybe they would shoot the holiday special as the first thing of a new production block, kind of like what they did in the Tenet era. Christmas Invasion was the first of that block, and then they carried on making them after that, as opposed to being at the end. So that would be interesting too. Also interesting, I mean, if you think about casting, you know, with an undetermined amount of episodes, hoping for 8, but possibly having less, and maybe if things go really well, you think maybe we could do more. Do you think Jodie Whittaker would leave after a 3rd season, not knowing how many episodes she would have to shoot?
I mean, that all depends on what kind of arrangements in place in the first place. Like, Sylvester McCoy, for example, was like, well, Peter Davison told me to leave after 3 years because Patrick Troughton told him to leave after 3 years, so maybe I'm going to leave after 3 years. So he goes to the brass and says, I might leave after 3 years. And they're like, well, unless you agree to a 4th, we're not going to give you a 3rd. So,
right,
you know.
Yeah.
What if America plans. Comes calling and says, here's a pile of money, Jodie Whittaker? She'd be dumb not to take it if she wants to.
I suppose there's that. I mean, you know, we've spoken often about how Tom Baker and John Pertwee are the outliers when it comes to the length of Doctor Who tenures. 3 years is the norm. David Tennant's probably the only one that sort of broke outside of that. You could sort of look at it, maybe Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi, just because of the way that there were gap years and stuff, and that sort of stretched the years out. But the number of seasons were constant, about 3, and maybe some specials here and there. So this is why I bring up, like, would Jodie stay after a 3rd season? Because the modern precedent is for doctors to leave after 3. I'm not ready to have Jodie Whittaker leave after 3, and especially after only 8 episodes. I'd feel like I was cheated out of some great Jodie Whittaker. So
as it is, her doing 11 for each of the first 2 series is still fewer than had ever come before, because Capaldi even did 13, other than 1 year. But
he did 12, didn't he?
12 plus 13. 12 plus.
But I mean, if it means RTT comes back and brings back Rose and 10, then I'm all for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if Whittaker regenerates into 10,
yeah. Because why wouldn't that happen?
Because that's how regeneration works.
Yeah.
Besides being ridiculous, that would be 3 10s in a row, because there are 2 of them.
That's true.
2.5 actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or would you tie it in like, hey, 14th Doctor for series 14? There is that unmistakable. But
yeah, but
that's only what pedants would think. Oh, come on, you know, that's kind of like me going, this is great that John Pertwee production codes go from AAA to ZZZ, and Tom Baker starts at 4A. It's one of the greatest coincidences ever in Doctor Who history that happened. So it's interesting. Anyway, they're in production right now. Today was as we record this, with children in need, with a VIP segment being the thing, the prize, sort of. So you donate £10 to Children in Need, and you could be entered to win a draw to go on a VIP tour of the Doctor Who set whenever that's safe to do so. And there was Jodie and Mandip on the TARDIS set, presumably like now. Like in the last week or so. Oddly enough, it was kind of strange because they were like slightly anamorphic. Like I feel like they were on like really widescreen, but they were sort of like squished a little bit on the Children in Need clip that I saw, and they were like looking off screen ever so slightly at the cue cards and not like a teleprompter and stuff. So it seemed a little hastily put together, but the intent was there. So yeah, they're back at it. They're back making Doctor Who again, which is always an exciting time, especially in these unprecedented times of a global pandemic. Curious to see about what the episodes will be like, how they'll be shot. For a production regime that has been famously kept their cards close to the vest and only promotes the show under duress. It seems I'm intrigued to see like the behind the scenes of just how this production will come about. You watch the Apple event that happened this past week, and like Apple events now, which are all like they're not live anymore. Obviously, they're like prepackaged,
which is great.
Yeah,
frankly,
they look great. But at the end, there's this big like this credit roll. Like, here's what we did. Here's how we shot this under COVID limitations and stuff, and everyone here, and here's who wore masks. Like, that feels to me like that's going to be like part and parcel for a credit roll for the next series. Like, here's what we did. We did not, endanger anyone's safety in making this this series of Doctor Who. So interesting times. Tell you what. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about regarding series 13 or?
Well, apparently for the Children in Need thing, number one, I was kind of hoping for a trailer for Resolution. Obviously, it didn't happen.
No.
And then even though number two, even though there was in the marketing blurb for Children in Need, there was a mention of Doctor Who. But Stephen, you were saying that like at the outset they didn't even talk about Doctor Who's participation.
No, they didn't. I thought for a second, are they going to do anything? I thought they said they're going to do something. Maybe they said, no, we're not going to do anything. Like it's San Diego Comic-Con all over again. But no, they had a little thing there. So, but yeah, like they had like the roll call. Here's what's going to happen. Look at all this. And yeah, they didn't even mention Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So that was upsetting. But I stuck with it.
But then it happened. And it lasted for a minute. But
4 or 5 minutes. The whole thing was 3 or 4 minutes long or something like that. But yeah, it was just neat to see them again. It's neat to see Jodie Mandip and only Jodie and Mandip, if you're keeping track at home, just be nerds on camera. They have a genuine rapport, and it's fun to watch those two together. So
Jodie Manship, am I right? Yeah,
I think you are right, Warren.
All right,
100%. Also, what happened in this past week is the first episode of Daleks! Exclamation point. Yes, you should shout it. Came out.
You gotta sing it. Daleks!
Yeah, it's that CG. I think it's what, 5-part series.
5 or 6, something like that.
Yeah, on the BBC Doctor Who YouTube channel, which features Daleks, as the name implies.
It's got some really interesting animation style.
Very much
it seems like basic and
retro-ish,
and
very, very retro, shall we say? I enjoyed it. I thought there was it's working in the Time Lord Victorious motif. And I read the first comic of it, and I know that something in that comic comes into this episode, but I don't think you needed to know that watching into this. I was actually quite pleased with it. I like this 13.5 minute episode of the first Daleks thing. So some interesting twists and turns, I thought.
I mean, Daleks are a little more conversational than they typically are, but
given it's Nick Briggs doing all the voices of all the different Daleks, yeah.
It was fine. I mean, it's nothing I'm going to run out and watch again to look for things I might have missed or whatever. It's like, okay, it's there. Mm-hmm. It's fine. Daleks. Without spoiling too much, Daleks try to do something and they don't succeed, and it's like, okay, so you got
every Doctor Who ever is what you're
saying. That little punch the air moment when they get the rug pulled out from under them.
Yeah, take that, Daleks, dummies. Anyway, links in the show notes if you want to watch.
I like the design of the Emperor Dalek with having the 3 lights, like the red Dalek. As well as
there
just
are 3 lights
being squatter, so there's only three bumps up the bottom.
I think it's based on the
3 bumps up the bottom. Sounds like a British bedroom farce.
That's
of the 60s.
actually Ray Cooney. I think it's based on like some of the comics or something like that, isn't it? That design of the Dalek Emperor with the big giant globe, basically as a head. I think that is. Maybe that ties into the Doctor Who magazine thing. We'll talk about a little later on. I don't know, but
maybe.
Yeah. So the tweet-alongs are back now because everyone's in lockdown again. Hello, welcome back to April. And so the Doctor Who tweet-alongs have returned. We talked last week about Blink and the Husbands of River song happening. I feel bad for Douglas McKinnon and Emily Cook and all those who took part in the Husbands of River song one, which took place about an hour or two after all the U.S. networks called the election for Joe Biden. And so everyone was just like agog and just happy and everything. And let's go, oh no, this thing is getting kind of overshadowed. So I saw it sort of floating, like it was literally the only thing in my feed that wasn't like Trump lost. So it was I kind of felt bad for them because it kind of got overshadowed a bit. So we'll see what world event happened tomorrow for us, yesterday for you on Saturday, November 14th for Turn Left, with Graham Harper making his return to Twitter.
Thermonuclear war.
Yeah, possibly. So they did Turn Left. And also Emily Cook and John Culshaw collaborated for a sketch to raise money for children in need, which is going to go out went out alongside that Turn Left tweet along. And all the content is now released at DoctorWhoLockdown.com, which is the unofficial website for all the lockdown stuff, which because we're back in lockdown now, I guess. So we get to watch some Doctor Who stories. So yeah. Fun stuff on Twitter. Remember fun? Oh, we're having fun again.
I don't. I what is this thing you speak of?
I know. I feel like we're in an abusive relationship with 2020. Is it like whenever something good happens, you're just like, no, this isn't real, is it? You just
I don't deserve this, do I?
No, you deserve it, people. You deserve to have fun. But just do it responsibly and wear a mask and social distance and wash your hands and don't go outside and never see anyone again for the rest of the calendar year. But have fun.
And buy an Oculus Rift or something. I don't know.
Stay at home getting hypnotized by the Tom Baker figurine on the latest Doctor Who magazine.
Oh my God, that thing is crazy, isn't it? Wait, I don't know what year that's from, but Chris is talking about Doctor Who magazine 558.
I think it transcends ages.
It does. Like, what year is that? Like, he's just like, that's not the Big Chief one. Is it the Big Chief one? Maybe it's the Big Chief one.
No, I think the Big Chief one would be a lot more realistic than that one.
No, I hope not. That is just like, it just looks into your soul, slightly cross-eyed.
Well, so does Tom Baker, so they accomplished what they were went for.
I suppose, but anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff about collectible stuff, both toys and everything, but also like screen stuff as well. There's a lot of stuff. Now, they don't necessarily like, it's collecting, not playing, Warren, so the dolly aspect is perhaps a little left of field.
Well, I've used the odd figurine. As long as it looks good in the picture, that's all that matters.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting read, though. I as per usual, the second it came out, I opened up my iPad and had a look and flipped through and said, oh, that looks good. I'll look forward to reading that later. And, here we are on Friday, Saturday, Sunday as we record this. And I haven't gone back to it yet, but it'll still be there when the time comes for me to do that. Also, there's the production notes where Chris Giblin kind of more or less just expanded on what was put out in the media through the not only the Doctor Who official page, but the Mirror. The Mirror is the one that actually got the scoop on.
Yeah, but they always do, and it's so irritating.
Yeah, like it's actually like it looks like Chibnall actually talked to the Mirror about it, or perhaps the Mirror, or maybe the Mirror was saying, basically, we're just going to repeat stuff from Doctor Who magazine and use it as an article, which is also a thing that could have happened too. But anyway, Doctor Who magazine 558 is out now at all reputable shops and online as well. Just like that aforementioned Daleks TV Century 21 classic 60s comic strip. They bundled them all together in this thing written by David Whittaker, and they've put them out and as an issue, a special issue for through Doctor Who magazine. So you can get it, you can buy it. Classic comics with Daleks and stuff in it. So yeah, that's the thing too.
I like how it's called a bookazine. That's a
I don't.
fun,
I don't
weird
like that word
word
at all.
Warren does
Terrible word.
Why do you hate that word so much, Warren?
Because it's a dumb. I like smashing two words together, and that's a bad. That's like a Peugeot hitting a semi truck. It doesn't work.
But what kind of Peugeot though? What kind?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
A French one.
Well, they're all French.
Well, yes, I know.
Okay. A 2CV. Was that the one that was that featured in Battlefield? You know, the little roll top convertible.
I was waiting for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Then there's the ones that I know of that I always thought that is the ugliest car I've ever seen is like the 1970s ones, which like the back wheels are literally at the very back of the car, and they're just this weird, odd looking thing. I've come to actually quite appreciate those Peugeot cars. No, it's a Citroen. I'm thinking of Citroen, guys. I'm not even thinking of Peugeot.
Wow.
I don't know cars.
Angry French 1960s car Twitter is very livid.
I went through in the mid 80s. I went through a fascination with cars, but I went through a fascination with like sensible European cars. Like I was after like show me a BMW or an Opel or a Mercedes. Ooh, a Saab. Yes, please. I had
a Lada.
Such a car. Oh my God, a Lada. I went to the Edmonton Car Show and they had Yugos and Ladas there, and I thought this is amazing. Everyone was like looking over at the hot rods and the Corvettes and going, no. Lada. I am looking at Soviet cars.
Were they still a product of the Soviet Union at the time? Or were they
absolutely.
The country where it's made no longer exists.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore. But no, I kind of wish. Well, it was in 1986. I should have grabbed like literature because they had all these. You know, I'm pretty sure I did grab the brochures, but I got rid of them many years ago. But what a shame! What a shame! I bet you a lot of made great cars. They really didn't. That was the dying embers of the Soviet Union. Very poor quality cars. Let's talk about some Big Finish stuff. How about? Do you want to talk about some Big Finish?
Do it up.
So there's obviously releases, announcements, and everything like that. But the one thing that has sort of changed is that the Time Lord Victorious Echoes of Extinction was a Paul McGann thing coming out. It was supposed to come out in late November of this year. It has had to be bumped to February 2021 because it was going to come out on vinyl, which would be available exclusively at Asda stores. But a tie-in with that is that the download version could only come out a week after that. So if you think that, let's just put it out on as download, you can't because of the agreement they struck with Asda. So yeah, there's going to be this weird outlier from this Doctor Who Victorious thing that'll come out in February instead.
Thanks, Lockdown.
Yeah, thanks a lot for...
I mean, mostly thanks, Lockdown, actually. Just this one little bit
Actually, yeah, thank you very much, Lockdown, for helping people not get COVID as much as we are right now. So, yeah. So, you know what? Christmas is canceled, and a Doctor Who thing is moved 3 months later.
Dear God.
We'll deal with it. It's an unprecedented year. March of next year, this is exciting. Master... Exclamation points are the thing now in Doctor Who spin-off media. With Eric Roberts and Chase Masterson starring in this new the TV movie Master in his own little audio series, which is kind of intriguing, I have to say. And he's there. He's older Eric Roberts.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense.
On the cover.
You're just a War Master.
Who knows? Yeah, because he got turned into a snake and then got vanished into the Eye of Harmony and stuff. And do you think he's gone forever and stuff? But he's never gone.
I was going to say that's one thing I find really cool is for the... Like we talked about him doing the live action promo thing last week. Mm-hmm. That was.
Yep.
But the artwork shows an older Eric Roberts with gray hair and whatnot. I'm like, that's kind of cool to do that.
Yeah.
The thing about Eric Roberts is that we forget that he can be a good actor because he phones it in all the time.
Yeah.
But sometimes he can actually be a good actor, and this might be one of these times.
I think so. Academy Award nominated for Midnight Run,
probably for good reason.
1988. Yeah. I never saw the movie, but like I'm thinking, wow, holy crap! Like
Julia Roberts' brother and a star before she was.
Yes, perhaps because of Midnight Run. So yeah, so intriguing. March 2021 is when Master appears on the Big Finish website. Also, the Third Doctor Adventures Volume 7 is coming in May of 2027. None of the original cast are in this. None. Not all, because sadly they've all passed on.
Yeah, but Tim Treloar is really good.
He's really good. Yeah, as the third Doctor, Daisy Ashford as Liz Shaw, and Sadie Miller, of course, daughter of Elizabeth Sladen, plays Sarah Jane Smith in that. So there are two fantastic 4-part adventures are in that set. That comes out in May, as I said, May of 2021. Just think where we'll be in May, everyone. Think positive thoughts here.
Same place right now.
Think positive thoughts, Warren. Come on.
We'll be
wearing
enjoying
less
conventions
clothing, by which I
again.
mean a T-shirt instead of a hoodie.
Yeah, well, there won't be any conventions to go to, but we'll be enjoying the thought of going to conventions again, perhaps.
There'll be virtual conventions.
Also, September 2021 features the return of the 11th Doctor adventures, not Matt Smith. It's Jacob Dudman.
Yeah, they always fool me every time with these. I'm like,
I know, you think, because they just slipped that thing out. It's, oh, yeah, by the way, we signed Matt Smith. No, they haven't signed Matt Smith yet. But those are coming in September of 2021. Hey, March is also the Eccleston box set too, which is coming out too, which is the thing to look forward to.
which is for real.
Yeah. I don't think they've recorded it yet, but it's happening. And lastly, in the news here today is the follow-up Kickstarter project for an Omega comic series featuring the Minions, as well as a secondary strip featuring Eden. Are we talking about Nightmare of Eden here? Is this what we're talking about? Yeah. Oh my God!
Because it's Bob Baker, right? So
it is.
Mm-hmm. So they're using Bob Baker properties.
That's good point. Yeah, Bob Baker.
So where's new Fancy K9?
Probably in the third portion of I have no idea.
Since I saw the Kickstarter the other day, it looks like they might have even added another one about Eldrad.
Yes, they did, because they've Eldrad Must Live as another one. Yeah, so the Kickstarter is Gareth Cavanaugh and the folks that put on the Lytton comic with Eric Sayward have launched this now. They cleared all of their stretch goals in the Lytton one, which I got. And they've well passed like 400% of their initial goal to get this Omega comic off the ground with just 10 days to go as this episode comes out. So it's all like perks and stretch goals now at this point. So yeah, you can contribute as well if you'd like, in the show notes at radiofreescar.com if you want to get this for yourself. And that's it. That's it for our chatter, talking about Doctor Who being back in production and all that stuff. Isn't that exciting? I think it's exciting. But after the break, though, we go back in time a little bit to Series 12 to talk about Can You Hear Me? With our friend Riley Silverman. Welcome back, indeed, to this episode 7 of Series 12 of our commentaries for Doctor Who Series 12, as a matter of fact. Can You Hear Me? The first story title with a question mark in the title. Yes, historic stuff here. And joining us for this one is our friend who hasn't been on the show for like 3 years, since the glory days of 2017. She is a writer for The Nerdist and also for the Troubled Waters podcast on the Maximum Fun network, if I get the name right. And she plays the Doctor on the Game of Rassilon, Doctor Who role-playing game podcast as well. It's Riley Silverman. Hello, Riley.
Hello, how are you?
We're doing great here. I always, we record these commentaries somewhat well in advance. 2020 is an interesting year. So we all hope that you are enjoying life in the future, everyone, in mid-November, where I'm sure everything's fine. Everything's fine.
If there is one.
Yeah, I'm recalling what it was like in 2016 in early November, listening to podcasts that had been recorded at the end of October.
Oh, yeah.
And that sinking feeling in my stomach whenever something would come up that was so sure how things were going to work out. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like a scheduled tweet that goes out during an inappropriate time on Twitter, thinking, "Oh, you forgot to cancel that scheduled tweet, didn't you?" Yeah, it's completely.
Oh, you mean like after the man whose Twitter account it is has died? You mean like that kind of situation?
Exactly that. exactly
Can you
that.
mean something like that?
Yeah, I do mean something like that. R.I.P. Herman Cain. So anyway, on that note, we'll discuss this happy-go-lucky Doctor Who story about...
The light frolicky romp that it is.
No, but a very a very good episode, and
it is excellent.
A very decent look at mental health and potential suicide and all those sort of things that they even enlisted the help of the UK's they're called Mind is who they are.
Mind, yeah, that's what it was.
So they actually they went to proper channels to try to do this right as opposed to guess, which I thought was quite good of them. So we're gonna do a commentary about it and probably be light and jovial and veer off topic and stuff. This is no disrespect to the episode in question. We're just here to watch Doctor Who and have fun here in the glory days of October 2020. Okay, folks?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I assume you all have your legally purchased Doctor Who Blu-rays, DVDs, all from North America, of course, because it's the only ones we're watching here. Good. Here we go then.
As we discussed before we recorded, of course, I'm living in America, so I'm watching it legally on HBO Max, the streaming service. So
that's right. Yes, good for you. And their inaccurate aspect ratio, but that's a whole other thing. That's not their fault. That's anyway. We'll get into it.
Listen, our country refuses to adapt measurements that don't pertain to our country.
Yeah.
So
no,
you know what?
Listen,
we're gonna call things inches, and we're gonna watch. The wrong aspect.
Oh,
so
I know.
That's just how it is.
It's not just yours. It's also happening in Canada on CTV Sci-Fi too. Commercial blacks, incorrect aspect. It's travesty. It's an international travesty, quite frankly. But
yes, it's the biggest problem we have at the moment.
Very large. We have to focus on something, and this is the one thing we're focusing on right now. Is the aspect ratio of Doctor Who Series 12 available everywhere else except for the Blu-ray, where it's the proper aspect ratio, and that is the version we're watching tonight. And here we go. For some reason, it's a radio show now. Can you hear me? In 3, 2, 1, play. Chris warned us
fools you with a black
beforehand.
screen.
It does, yeah. He warned us before recording that there's no visuals.
I will say that the closed captioning really it really plays up the fact that the first line of dialogue is the name of the episode. It's very much one of those moments.
Listen's the first.
That's like a typical drinking game thing. If they say the name of the episode, take a shot.
Yeah, but you're like, I even got the cap off this bottle here. This bottle of Zima.
And Blink also opens with not the immediate word, but it opens with the video of his speech, doesn't it? The Blink and You're Dead. Isn't it the first thing in that episode?
I believe so. How do we feel about? I know we can't.
Sorry,
go ahead, Riley.
No. This is less important than what you were saying. I'm just saying the controller for my video is blocking the subtitles, so it's I can't read what's being said in the episode. Sorry.
Move the mouse.
Continue.
Move the mouse, and then it'll go away.
Yeah. It's a thing that has happened in recent years is basically we've thankfully kind of gone past, or maybe not all TV productions, but Chernobyl has it. They're not all speaking like I'm speaking Russian, like we're Russian, even though we're speaking English. They are just speaking their normal British accents, even though they are in medieval Syria. And I kind of like that. We'll get you can understand they are Syrian, and we're just getting the dialogue across.
I remember that was a thing that Tom Cruise got a lot of flack for when he made the movie Valkyrie, was that he didn't speak with a German accent. And I'm like, his character is supposed to be speaking fluent German. He wouldn't be speaking American with a German accent. He'd be speaking whatever. He'd be speaking clear English, clear German with no accent, because it'd be native German.
Mm-hmm. I remember they made a big deal about that in Hunt for Red October, where they sort of did a transition to Sean Connery.
Oh no,
all
that's
of a sudden
brilliantly
he's speaking
done.
English. Yeah.
Oh, Valkyrie did the same thing. You hear him writing a note in German, and then it translates as he's writing it.
And I think the 13th Warrior, which is same director, John McTiernan, they did the same thing. They had these Vikings, and I can't remember where Antonio Banderas is from, or his character.
Spain.
But they just talk in
I think he's supposed to be Arab.
Viking
I think
is.
I think he's based on an actual either. It's not a historical figure, actual Arabic folklore character.
But what they did is they had the Viking speaking, and then they just kind of slowly merge into English, and then you at the same time as the characters start understanding what they're saying, and just kind of this shorthand into him learning the language. So, which I thought was a really cool way to pull it off.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, the rest of the movie's not that great, but that was cool.
Yeah. The opening grew on me. I didn't love it at first, the new series opening, but I'm a fan of this. The exploding outward and the kind of like liquidy vibe to it.
Yeah. Everyone seems to eventually sort of like it's got to be some sort of tunnel. At some point, you got to be flying through a tunnel. That is just a rule.
This is classic Superman 1978 right here.
Yeah,
and the Fountain 2000 and whatever.
And as a fitting tribute to the episode, I'm going to leave it feeling very depressed when it's done. So that actually works out good.
Done.
Yeah, The Fountain's one of those movies that I remember when it ended, I just kind of sat in the theater until I eventually realized the lights were coming on and I had to leave because I didn't know how to process it.
People have asked me what I think of it. I think it's a well-made failure. Like, it doesn't quite accomplish what it's trying to do, but it's pretty interesting to watch it try.
It's also one of those things where he tried so hard to make it as a different kind of movie for so long and kept losing funding for it. So it's like this weird attempt at like compromising someone's vision and not succeeding as you compromised it. So.
But there's enough there that you're like, something's going on. So I got to give him points for that. As we ignore this fairly important stuff.
Yeah.
I do love the Doctor. Kind of a nod to like Matt Smith and other stuff in Power of Three, where he can't deal with time progressing normally. So the Doctor's like, well, we're going to meet back at lunchtime tomorrow. I'm just bored. I'm just going to go right there.
Yeah. And I also think
to kill.
This does indicate like a lot more of the Doctor's need to have like companionship in a way that like I think a lot of our doctors don't always like. There's always the like don't travel alone for too long thing, but this episode especially, I feel like she's really calling attention to the fact that she doesn't have friends around her and that bothers her.
Mm-hmm.
I also like that. I mean, we'll get to it when she's walking around the Bamaristan in Aleppo about how like, oh right, I'm alone, like, you know, because so many times. I mean, I always look back at the episode 1 of The Face of Evil, where Tom Baker leaves the TARDIS and then more or less directly talks to camera until Leela shows up on the scene, so he finally has somebody to talk to. You know, because the Doctor always talks to himself or herself, except for Patrick Troughton perhaps, and maybe Matt Smith actually, and so it always just feels weird. And I love that they actually. They address it.
They kind of had fun calling that out a little bit and I guess I remember he said it wasn't in the script that Jamie Matheson in Mummy on the Orient Express, where when Peter Capaldi is talking to himself as the Doctor, he did a Tom Baker voice when he was responding to himself. And I know Matheson said that nowhere in the script did it say do a Tom Baker voice. He just like chose to do that. And it must have been like him drawing from that same feeling.
Him talking to his other selves. I mean, why wouldn't he?
Also the nod back to Jelly Babies as well in Mummy.
That was his suggestion. But like, you know, if he's going to talk to himself, then he might as well. I mean, you know, how often do we talk to ourselves? Which we all do, I'm sure. You know, we might be talking to an earlier version of ourselves.
The work from home situation means I talk to myself quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like this nice little tour that the TARDIS fam has of their daily, like, normal lives. Like, I like that what Graham would do is just go play cards with some people, and Ryan goes and plays video games, and I
do like that, like, they just go right back into the mundane stuff, and, you know, they all have their cover stories, you know.
And Cruise is a great one. That's like that. Yeah. That just covers everything.
Yeah. And especially for Graham, it's like it's such a great, like, I'm mourning, I have to do what I have to do, so.
Which is not untrue.
Yeah. And I like when Yaz is doing it, and it's very much, she just like says where she's gone. She just doesn't imply that it was at various points in history and through time and space as well. So,
I also like, you know, we missed the scene there that we were talking over, but you know, about Yaz and her sister are like have a hug. They have a moment. They are meeting up for something, but we don't know what that is yet.
Yeah.
And the parents are gone, and I don't know if the parents were like. It's never supposed to be part of their little, you know, memoriam thing.
Did they planned it every time they go out to, like, I don't know, for supper or something?
Well, they were gone to Whitby apparently. So
Now I'm wondering if the parents are even really aware of exactly what happened.
Yeah,
I know the family was worried about them, but they do say they're... Yeah, because her sister's the one that called the cops on her.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, it's like it's their own little private, sister-to-sister thing, and nobody else's business.
Yeah, maybe it's something she feels like she can't necessarily talk about with her parents, and maybe that's like a generational thing and a cultural thing that like...
Oh, I could totally see
plays into
being
it.
a cultural thing for sure.
Yeah, interesting. I never thought of it until we talked about them not being there just now.
I like how like open-ended it is. Like we don't really see why Yaz left, why she ran away in the first place. Like it might have been like bullying, perhaps the police woman says, as we jump to like literally the last scenes of the episode. But I mean, she might have been running from something that happened with her parents. I mean, her parents might have been responsible. We don't necessarily know. That's not necessarily the important thing. We don't need to see the impetus of why she did what she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of parallels between this and Vincent and the Doctor, including the kind of dodgy creature stuff that's just there to go along with the mental health stuff. But,
I was going to be a monster.
But I do like the way, I wrote about it in my piece, but I like the way that the monster does play into the mental health aspects of it, which I think is really well done.
More so than it does in Vincent, for sure.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Vincent definitely has parts of it of like only he can see it, and that's an aspect of it. But yeah, this one I think definitely is even more heavy-handed in that regard. This episode does a great job for the first half too of being like genuinely kind of scary and startling at times,
and flat out weird. Yeah,
yeah.
Like that's the problem. Well, one of the problems with Vincent and the Doctor is it's just too whimsical, and then it isn't, and it just is a low. There's a little more of a consistent tone here. Yeah,
it's funny because when I watched it the first time, I really thought this was like one of the more the least coherent episodes of the show. But now that I've watched it a few times, it actually does have a very solid through line and a pretty well constructed narrative. It's just it's not a typical like A to B narrative that you normally see because it's so split between all these perspectives. And I loved it when it first aired, but I think that I have more respect for it now watching it again.
I also appreciate that the person playing Ryan's friend is somebody we have seen in the series before. It's not just some random person. Obviously, we didn't get to know them like we do here, but it's still somebody we've seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big problem during Clara's run, is it felt like Clara had a different set of friends and family every time.
Yeah. And John.
Were they the same, or were they just recast? Like, who knows?
Well, they're all splinters from different times.
Yeah.
So at one point, she was like living with a family and like taking care of their kids, and then she was a teacher, and then she had a grandma, and then it was, so.
Then Danny Pink was around, then she didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, back to, upon first watch, I mean, the four of us and anyone else who writes for the show, or about the show rather, and podcasts about, like, that first viewing of a Doctor Who episode is a weird experience because we're all kind of like watching it, thinking about what we're going to say about it,
Yeah.
It's kind of a business watch, basically.
It is a bit of a business watch. Like if I have the time, and Sundays were a bit of a mess, Sundays are bad in a way because we would, normally our recording schedule is back in the olden days, we'd watch it on Saturday, I would watch it again, and probably a third time before recorded on Sunday morning. And sometimes I would only have the chance to watch it once, or maybe if I'm lucky twice. And so I have to I'm trying to watch this as a fan so I can enjoy it, but I'm also thinking I have to remember what I'm watching so I can talk about it like in 3 hours.
Yeah, with Nerdist, I was the day of reviewer for Series 11, and it was, their screener system was terrible. Like, their screener system was set up so that we wouldn't get them in America until after they already aired in the UK. So Sunday afternoons was like, I would basically, I think like noon my time, get the screener, and then I would have an hour to basically watch it, and then I had maybe 2 or 3 hours to write a review of it and then have it ready for the site. So my Sundays were shot for the entire season of the show.
Your colleague Kyle Anderson came up to Vancouver, and it was on at the time. I don't remember which one it was. And we had to watch it, and then he had to retreat to the very room I'm sitting in now and write like a maniac, which I'm sure you've done too, for Nerdist, and get his review out. He had about the same time Crunchy did.
Yeah, and we switched to, in Series 12, we kind of stopped doing a lot of the immediate reviews and started doing more, like, blowouts of the show, like, later on in the week. And for me, it really made it a lot easier for me to enjoy it as a fan again, because, like, this episode, for example, I had a piece that I wrote about it that published, but I don't think it was until like Wednesday of that week that I actually put that up, and it was nice to be able to kind of have the first pass as a fan, and then be able to, and like same thing we watched. I think a lot of us, I don't know if all of you were in the room, but we watched it as a group. The next episode, Hunting of Vila Diodati at Gallifrey 1 this past year.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I didn't have to then rush out of the crowded like room full of Doctor Who fans to go off and write about the episode immediately after it aired.
That's true. That was a fun experience, as we'll get to next week. But,
Yeah.
Watching it first and then getting to watch it in the auditorium. It's a rare chance to watch a Doctor Who story in an auditorium.
It was
It's a rare
great.
chance
And
to go into an auditorium now, but
Yeah, I got my first viewing was in the auditorium, and so it was very nice to kind of have that first, because I think there was a panel happening when y'all were watching it ahead of time.
Yeah.
So I chose to be at the panel. I think also so we could hold down seats in the room for the screening. And I remember there was something about, I think I was sitting next to, I'm sure, a friend of the show, a friend of all of ours, Shannon Doar, and Shannon and I were like almost like in each other's laps, jumping at things and like having that like mutual reaction to stuff, and it was super fun. So I'm extremely grateful we got that experience this year.
yeah, it was the perfect episode to air at a convention, I think, because there's lots of like jump moments and laugh moments. This one's a bit of a darker tone.
Yeah.
This would have been more rough to watch as a
pretty
group.
dark too,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
But that one has enough fan service in it too that I
That's
think it
true,
was a
yes.
perfect one to watch as a. But as much as I want to talk about that episode, I know you're doing a commentary for it next time, so I will not go into my details of things about it that were great to watch. But
I like to think this is Matt Frewer's evil brother.
Yeah. The figures are pretty creepy and weird, maybe dumb. I don't know what the word I'm looking for.
and it's
A bit
nice
of all that. It's a gumbo.
It's nice. Yeah, it's nice of the costume department, Jesus Christ Superstar, to lend the Pharisee costumes to Doctor Who for the purposes of this episode.
Oh,
I can't hear you. I have a finger in my ear.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I just can't resist.
It's such a weird thing to decide to make that's how your monster works. Like, I just want to know where that.
Don't these guys make
Yeah.
reference to the Eternals? Are they Eternals? I can't remember what they are.
They do.
He
make
references the Eternals.
And the
yeah.
Celestial Toymaker later as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Guardians.
Which is
Yeah,
such
the
an
Guardians
easy
and the
get.
Eternals.
Just say the words, and all of a sudden nerds like us are like, yeah.
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah,
They mentioned enlightenment. Ah.
yeah. And I think they also say it so that people then don't spend the next month going, "Were they Eternals?" and like debating on the internet about it. They just go, "No," but they hang out at the same coffee shop. Like it's that kind of like.
Like shoot it down right away. Like just say, like, okay, no, it's not that. Okay, nerds, like you might as well be looking dead to the camera. It's not the no, it's not Susan either. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not Susan.
I had a
God's
Susan
sakes.
joke in the chamber. I can't believe you got there exactly before I got to it. I was literally going to say it's not Susan. It's not River coming back.
Our friend Rachel, who was on the Spyfall Part 1 commentary, has popularized the it's not effing Susan, which we will not repeat in its full extent here, of course, but
Yeah.
we'd like to.
One of these days it's going to actually be Susan, and no one's going to know what to do with themselves.
It's totally going to happen.
Yeah, probably won't actually, to be fair. But yeah,
Oh, I know, but imagine if it did. Just imagine. Like honestly, like remember that as this is great. Doctors talking on the phones and stuff.
I love it.
When Peter Capaldi was like kept like bringing her, like he had a picture of her in his office in series 10. There was that moment when he sort of like surprised everyone at the Doctor Who experience and did a panel, and a kid asked a question, and he almost like was in character, almost like getting a little choked up, remembering his granddaughter Susan.
yeah.
And they were like building to something. I thought maybe it was going to be Susan. And even like at the end of like, when Bill showed up in Twice Upon a Time, I thought, is it Susan? Like, I thought this is the moment. This is the one time they could do this. Like, it's finally ending the Peter Capaldi era. Of course they're going to bring Susan. It was Bill. It was the only time I was relatively disappointed to see Bill because I was hoping for Susan.
I had the opposite experience because I've just finished watching Matt Smith's first season again with my girlfriend because she's never seen it before. And the whole thing with the tweed jacket, which we completely dropped the ball on and said, no, that was a production mistake. It's got nothing to do with it. And then they showed us up completely. And then we learned our lesson. Everything has to be more complicated.
So this is another character here, Tahira, who does not have her memory wiped at the end of this. I just want to.
I think she would have been a great companion, frankly. I mean, not the places and stuff with companions to begin with, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would be more than happy to have her as a companion, but I think we need to like write for the companions we actually have before we start adding new ones to the list.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't point it out when it was happening, but I love the fact that the Doctor's phone is a Motorola Razr flip phone, like an old school, like just what a random choice to have being her, because it's like it's not so old that it seems old timey and ridiculous. Like it's not like a Zach Morris brick phone, but it's also not a new. It's like everyone else has their iPhones and stuff out, and she has this Motorola flip phone. Like I'm just imagining the Doctor playing Snake or something while she's bored.
They keep trying to bring it back too for some crazy reason.
Yeah,
The flip phone, yeah.
And now they got a duo, and I saw a commercial for it, and they show like a Zoom meeting in it. I'm like, every one of these people I hate. Like, I never want to be in this Zoom meeting. This looks like my personal hell. On a phone, no less.
this gag of Graham's of "Do you know the planet?" I mean, give me an A to Z. This is a great gag, and I
brilliant delivery, brilliantly delivered by Bradley Walsh. Yeah.
I love Graham's role in this season now that like it's not as Graham focused as series 11 was, where Graham has kind of become like the Bender from Futurama of this series. Where
that's the first time I've heard that, and you are absolutely right.
That is a good one.
He's the king of the lean-in jokes. Like no matter what's happening, like he just has the one-liner that can get out of a scene or they can move on. It's so great.
Yeah,
and at least he survives here on like Cereal Shops and Planet of the Spiders.
Yes, we were all thinking that, or indeed like Doctor Who and Human Nature.
I just think putting that thing on your head's probably a bad idea.
Yeah, anything that's clamped to your head is
not
good.
Optimal. No.
I'm
How come all these things are giant? Sorry, go ahead.
I was surprised they used the Cerebro helmet instead of the weird sticky part of the TARDIS that Clara uses.
I just love how you have a giant space station and then we get in one tiny neon-y room.
Yeah, I mean, budget still exists, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, of course, yes.
I have a feeling Series 13 is going to be a whole lot more of outdoor shots, like a lot of wide open spaces,
a lot of epic confrontations at a distance for no particular reason.
Lots of quarries
and a lot of set report spoilers, perhaps.
That's
as well.
gonna be fun, actually. Yeah, as I say, people, we were recording this in early October, so by the time this goes out in mid-November, news of Doctor Who actually shooting new episodes might have been announced. But yeah, that is totally a way to get around it, to just have a whole bunch of outdoor recording. I mean,
and then
have snipers for anybody that comes near because they don't want to affect them.
And then
maybe this might be the best.
They can ADR everything if they have to as well.
Yeah, it's a great time for possibly less set spoilers because there won't be enough people out in public to be around to set the spoilers. So.
Maybe.
Well, think of all the steps they have to go through to get there. I mean, there are some nerds who do it anyway, but that's when natural selection takes over. God, I'm going to hell. Anyway.
Well, I'm saying it didn't work out for the Batman, so hopefully it works out for the Doctor.
That's true.
I do love this concept of two planets and their colliding gravity causing a prison. That's a really interesting, that's a very Doctor Who-y kind of thing to do. So
yeah, I also like the alternate software interface there. Basically strumming the game of the
fiber
harp
optics,
of Rassilon there. Yeah,
that is in fact the Mind Probe.
Yeah.
I do like how well she is able to go, well, this is obviously how this works. Just go right into it. Like, I'm a big fan of the Doctor just knowing how weird technology works. Yeah.
Well, I like that she discovers it. I think too many times in Series 11, she sort of says, oh, I know you. You're this, 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 and that. She would basically tell the person who they were. She wouldn't, discover it. I like it when the Doctor discovers something.
I'm a fan of that as well. I think that's a good point.
Nobody likes to know it all.
I think Series 12 has done a significant amount of rediscovering who this Doctor is and actually doing a lot of work with her as her own character, as opposed to I think Series 11 felt like it kind of didn't want to dive into that too much, and it kind of wanted to just kind of let it be like almost anyone could have played the Doctor in that series and run around and done stuff and it would have been fine. Whereas this one, I feel like she really owns the role a lot more this season.
I agree. I think, and I've said this many times, where I think Doctor Who often underestimates how accepted their new Doctor will be, and so will often sort of hold back other elements of the show. And I feel like they think, well, we're making a woman a Doctor, let's not go too crazy with anything else. Let's just try and take this as baby. And everyone's like, okay, well, let's she's a woman Doctor now. Let's see what amazing stuff she gets to. And you're right, she didn't really get into that didn't really explore the area. She wasn't like ever really that angry at anything. Now, like in this series, we get that rage, a little bit more, which is good. It's rare to have a woman be allowed to be angry and heroic and funny at the same time without being dumped on by men.
Yeah.
Hashtag
totally
not
great.
my doctor.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm going to date this and say Kamala Harris during the debate.
There it is.
Yeah, Zelen has a fly on his head the whole time. There is a
Have a good time, November 15th. Yay!
Yep.
This is either a whimsical thing or something to make you sad.
I felt like Series 11 had a lot of lines of dialogue that implied that she was like unsure or insecure, but Jodie was so owning the role so early on that those lines a lot of times fell flat for me, because I feel like for me, the second she stood on the crane, which, she said, well, when I spoke to 3 doctors this year, when I asked them about their first doctor speeches, she said, like, that was a line where, like, she had no choice but to just get into it because of the situation and the rain and stuff. And I feel like she got it so clearly that she then had it from then on. And so it was weird whenever she had to, like, say things that implied she didn't, because the chemistry was saying otherwise.
I completely forgot to mention that. You interviewed doctors 10, 12, 11, and 13 for BBC America, did you, Riley?
It was for Nerdist. It was part of the HBO Max launch of having all the classic runs. But yeah, I got to speak to Tennant Smith and Jodie Whittaker.
That was awesome.
It was very nice, yeah.
That was in the early... I don't remember what that was. 2020 is a long time.
Yeah,
it was in the Zoom era. I know that, but...
Here's how long ago it was. I almost forgot that it happened until just now when I brought it up in conversation.
Good gravy.
I was like, oh, this summer when I spoke to 3 stars of my favorite television show, and a woman that I consider kind of a bit of a hero because she's the first woman doctor. But yeah, it's fine. That happened 3 months ago.
It was a thing. It was just another Zoom call. Another Zoom call.
Here's what we should do. We should just adopt the rel as our unit of measurement. Why the hell not? Doesn't make it. We can't measure it. Who cares?
How many Baramies ago was that to make a good place? Yeah.
Several Barrowmans, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that measures.
Barrowmen.
Show us on the... Never mind. All right.
I also cut myself off from several saucy remarks.
Yeah. Something that a Barrowman would never actually do.
Or would he?
I do love the variations in what these nightmares are. I like that they're all extremely different kinds of anxiety. Like hers is very much this, what if this memory that saved my life didn't go the way it did? Mm-hmm. Ryan's is very much, what if the worst episode of the show was still going on? And Graham's is cancer. So,
or that, or basically, why am I in 2020? What is happening here?
This is fine.
Is someone going to come in with pizzas at some point, or?
This is a very Amy Rory kind of moment happening here, too.
It is a bit, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Tebow, the boy who waited.
Not to insult Tebow's name, but Tebow is one of the names of the major Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. But
I mean, he's no chief.
It is spelled. It is spelled differently.
Not to be confused with Tim Tebow either.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Which
is spelled player? Just like the Ewok. Yeah.
Oh dear.
I love that they were like, Orphan 55 is going to be such a beloved episode that of course we'll want to call it back in this episode as well.
It's like the callbacks to the Slovene and stuff, yeah.
Who did you end up getting to comment? I know that when you were asking us to do episodes, like it seemed like that was a choice that was very common.
Our good friend Annette was more or less knew that no one would pick it, so she picked it.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I recall giving you my list of episodes, and the response that I got from you was, "Why does no one want to talk about Orphan 55?"
I know. It was mostly I anticipated that no one would, but yeah.
I think if I had known it was this format and we were talking about it, watching it, I might have actually volunteered to do it. I thought we were doing a let's talk about our thoughts on it kind of thing, like we had done last time I was on the show, and I had no thoughts to say about it. Like, yeah, that's tag, and there's that lady is her mom. That's cool. Like, it's like.
This is why we do commentaries, Riley. This is because it's lazy for one, and it's fun.
Like that's right out of the gate. That's the main reason.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad that any excuse we get to get Grace back on the show for a little bit.
That's true. That was a very quick cameo
even though Grace and Graham aren't a thing in this.
No.
In that fantasy, whatever.
Yeah, a little sad until the very end when she's like, "Why didn't you save me?" But
And here she is talking to herself and realizing.
Yeah, very fun.
And there's a thunderball from Spirit from Space in there.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a nice, like you said, callback to things the show has historically done, but also a good character moment for her as her version of the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here's coming up where he references the Toymaker and the Eternals and
the Guardians.
Yeah, we get 2 villain monologues in this episode. We get his and we get hers.
They had to bring the Guardians
Yeah,
back.
we do.
I would love if we had the Guardians come back and we had the bird on the head and everything.
Gotta be
I
the bird on the
would
head.
love it. I'd be into it.
But how do you replace Valentine Dial?
I know.
Or Dial.
You have to like maybe if you just like take the bird, like have the bird on the head, and then welcome, and then like or like it's a scene where it just like takes the head.
Just make him into birds.
bird
what
off.
the hell?
With a human on the head.
You know they would
There you
probably
go.
like. This would never happen, but if they could somehow convince Kate Blanchett to do the Guardian and wear a hat similar to
yes.
her Hela hat, I would be very into
That
it.
would be that would be
Eternals have their
tip-top, I
games,
think.
Guardians have their power struggle. Here we go. And then
Did they mention the Toymaker? I don't
he
think
did.
They did.
I think he says it in a second. I think he says it.
Okay. There
There we
it is.
go. Yeah.
There we go. So all you nerds at home, you got that? You got that? You
Yeah.
checked all that stuff up? Yeah.
All the nerds at home, and indeed right here.
Yeah. That's just so people can go, he probably is the Toymaker, and this is the reboot version of the Toymaker.
I mean, sure. Why the hell not?
I mean, he's not. I mean, I'm saying I'm glad they put that in there.
Oh, I
so
know.
Yeah.
Kind of glad they
It's
didn't call
like-
the
it's like-
Celestial Toymaker too, because,
That's a bit iffy, yeah, to put it mildly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
which, to be fair, I can't remember the dialogue of that story, if they even mention the Celestial Toymaker in the dialogue. And of course, none of the episodes are called. No, wait, the first one is called that. I take it all back. It is called that on screen, and its individual title. Episode 1, I think. Anyway, there's this guy who looks familiar, but I don't know if I've placed
He does.
him. He might have been in Game of Thrones. I think it might have been in Game of Thrones.
I mean, everybody else was. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure,
I mean,
why not?
there's only about 20 actors for them to pick from. You have no Game of Thrones. So.
He was in Children of Earth. And,
okay.
He did
Was he
some,
really?
did some voice stuff in Ghost Monument as well.
Ah.
But not Game of Thrones?
Sure, maybe. I don't know.
Oh.
Harry Potter. He's probably been in Harry Potter.
I'm trying to find the actor's name. I have it in my
he's
article.
Game of Thrones, yes.
There it is. Who was he in Game of Thrones, Chris? That show you never
trying to
watched
find
past
this
season
here.
2. All right.
He played Maester, I bet.
That sounds...
I'm completely guessing. That's 100%
Kevin
guess.
Lannister?
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, yeah.
That I recognize. He
have
didn't
to
have the
give him-
tattoo on his head, but...
I'm not committed to the role, I guess.
Kevin Keevan? I don't know what the pronunciation is.
Yeah, I think it's Kevin.
yeah.
It's one of those. There's a couple of Game of Thrones characters' names that are clearly just English names that they decided to make it look weird for fantasy.
Yeah, throw it in there.
Like Ned Stark is Eddard Snark. But,
That's true, because you couldn't call him just Ned.
Yeah.
Ned.
Excellent tap dancer in a crisis. We're talking about Jodie and her coming in the role for this show, and I've heard a lot of unfair criticism of her that she is just doing a David Tennant impression, and I think it's less that and more just that Jodie and David have a natural similar energy to begin with, and I think that's 100% part of why she was cast, because I think that's what they wanted. But I also think that a lot of what she's doing that people are calling Tennant is Tennant doing the Doctor, and so that's why it's there.
Yeah.
Like I think it's and I think there are definitely moments in this episode, especially where you're starting to see things that are very uniquely Jodie that would not be somebody else's Doctor's moves. A lot of those, like talking
Her
to herself.
scrunches are superior.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean,
Yeah, because, Matt Smith's Doctor was kind of aloof. Peter Capaldi's was sort of cynical. I mean, that was their approach to sort of conversations with people and stuff. And so after those two Doctor portrayals, we sort of get that I care about what you're saying to me approach.
we have.
Well, the
we
other thing
have
is
the
Tennant
behind
didn't
doc-
as much. He wanted to talk first.
Yeah.
It's also nice to have, like, villains again. Series
Yeah,
11
that's
was
a
like
nice thing about this
they would
season.
often do like a little turn. No, we're former assassins here to just witness things, and said no, we're just sort of
Which
creatures
I didn't mind
stuck."
in that particular episode. Yeah,
I know.
My
but
only
it's-
problem with that is it felt so much like what had just happened at the end of Twice Upon a Time with Testimony, where it felt like almost the
True,
exact
yeah,
beat
yeah.
twice. I think if a season or two break in between, I would have liked it more.
yeah.
and the Doctor even says, "I don't know what to do with myself. There's no villain here."
Yeah.
Okay,
but
here we
that one
go.
is far better to me than the thing. Yeah, here's a little headbutt in
This-
the Angry Inch moment here.
This
This is also going to be a first.
This is one of the greatest sequences I've ever seen in Doctor Who. I just adore it.
Yeah, it's so great.
It's so unexpected.
It's so Hitchhikers.
It's
Yeah.
Hitchhikers, but drawn like as if like from cave drawings from like early days of this
Yeah.
this culture.
I'm telling you, it's that Hedwig and the Angry Inch song. It's the Origin of Love, but with Doctor Who stuff
They did this
happening
in
in it.
a Harry Potter film too, and it was actually the best thing about that Harry Potter film.
Well, it's nice too
Except it was
because
drawn more like Stalinist art.
yeah, well, we just had that. They did it with the
The three
the elder
things.
elder one.
Yeah,
The elder things. But yeah, this is also great because we just had a villain monologue the previous scene, so it's like nice. Like if we're gonna have two villain monologues, we got to find a way to make them seem very.
That thing looks like
different
a
from each other.
coronavirus, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, like have a slideshow presentation. Have a PowerPoint ready for your villain monologue. I think that's
Yeah. Well, it worked for Godzilla, so. Or no, what was it? Yeah. I
now
feel like
which
I'm hanging from
Godzilla
the
you
vine
talking
now.
about? The
Godzilla King of the
1996
Monsters.
Oh.
Literally,
I never saw
the
it.
villain. The villain of the movie has a PowerPoint presentation ready to go for her. Like she's like,
Of course he does.
Well, it's a she. Way
All right.
to assume. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it is. She's like a surprise villain, and you find out that she's a villain, and she literally, she has like a slideshow presentation ready to go to show why she chose to side with the bad guys in the
That's
film.
awesome.
It's
That's awesome.
so great.
And it doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah.
Probably whiz with Excel as well.
Yeah.
Can I just say that I enjoy what is the name of the lady god here?
I just had it open.
Her Rakaya.
Claire
I-
Hope Ash.
Yeah,
Rushdie.
Rakaya is the name of the. I just love her outfit and I love her hair and I just think it's a striking look.
Yeah.
Like shocking
Speaking
blonde
of Game
hair.
of Thrones.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is pretty Game of
it
Thrones.
is a bit, isn't it? Actually, yeah. She just borrowed the wig from Emily Clark when she was done with her.
I do love
Well, you're evil now. Give me the wig.
Yeah.
I do love this scene, or there's like a moment where she's like gonna feed. She's like, "I'm gonna take our time," and then the next time we see her, she's like clearly absorbing a ton at one time. It's like, wait,
Yeah.
are you taking your time, or are you doing it all at once? Like, what's the
Well,
plan here?
To a god, I suppose taking their time would be, taking down a street block in Sheffield or wherever the hell they are.
Fair enough.
Fun fact for you there, Stephen.
All right.
The actress who plays her was educated at a school in Edmonton, London,
How about I know I never went to Edmonton,
which
London.
Edmonton, Alberta is named after.
Nor did I go to.
I did not know
I've
that.
never been to Edmonton, Kentucky either, for what it's worth. But
There's one of those, yeah.
I've been to Paradise, but I've never been to me.
is that a no?
It's a 70s song. I don't remember who sang it.
Oh, okay. Captain and Tennille.
No, it's like a one-hit wonder or a two-hit wonder.
Little foreshadowing. For the
Oh,
series
right, this
season
thing.
finale.
Yeah, this thing. I don't know if I picked out the.
Oh yeah, that thing that reordered all of Time Lord history.
Yeah, here's a slight reference to it.
Have any of us gone back and checked to see if this young child actor was one of the timeless children we see? 'Cause I know I
As
haven't.
of yet, no.
I think she's supposed to be the very first one, so I assume it's the same.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
I think she's the one that what was it, Kokuya? What was the name of the scientist that found the timeless child?
Oh, goodness. I've been watching these episodes again, like basically the day before we do commentaries. And
Yeah.
as we get closer to the end of the series and thus closer to the beginning of the COVID, my memories of those episodes are very, very gray right now.
Yeah.
They won't be when I watch them again, but as of recording right now, I'm thinking, what happened in the first episode of Ascension of the Cybermen? There was some Cybermen, and they had
There were some,
They
some
ascended.
Cybermen. There was a
Yeah.
ship.
They ascended.
There was some yelling by the half-faced Cyberman guy.
That's
There was some
true.
flying robot heads.
Wormhole?
Yeah, this whole series because I have yet to get the Blu-rays myself, and I just now got them on HBO. This is the first time I've revisited this season, and I'm that's why I'm having these ideas about like what her characterization and stuff is like, and that's why I'm also not remembering the names of characters and stuff like that. It was actually very nice today to kind of just dive back into some Jodie Whittaker era Doctor Who, because I hadn't. It's been so long for me.
Yeah, well, that's why we sort of wait like a few weeks or months to do commentaries on them, because time settles. We can sort of like we forget enough, I suppose, from that when it was on, but we could still watch it as a series as a whole, and then forget what's coming afterwards anyway, as I clearly have.
Yeah. This is such a good metaphor for like being able to like control your own fears and like learning to like live with it very much reminds me of the Babadook, where it's like you can't defeat your fear, but you can like find a way to like coexist with it.
Mm-hmm.
God, it really
I've
is.
yet to see the Babadook. I feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
Well, sorry that I just spoiled it for you.
That's fine. I'll forget.
It's delightful. It's not delightful. It's actually a very chilling horror film, but I recommend it. I saw it way later too, but I think it holds up still. It's like this episode. It's a very good visual and like metaphysical metaphor for
I've heard it's good. I'm just
grief.
I'm lazy is what I'm saying here.
Yeah. I understand totally.
It's handy that gods have patience.
Yeah.
Because they
It kind of helps if you're in forever and
they could just
control things.
savor the moment here. They sit down at their table before going up to the buffet trays. I mean, it's just like
it's like Troughton and that other guy and the two doctors that are sitting down while they're just.
Oh, Shockeye.
let's just sit
The
here.
Constant Greg. Remember that one? We got that name down.
9-course meal. Let's just take our time and enjoy ourselves here.
There are no boogeymen, except the one that's going to show up in 2 seconds when I leave the room.
Yeah. Why would you tell them that exact thing at that exact moment, Mom?
Yeah.
This kid is screwed for life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, kid.
Thousands of pounds of therapy bills begin now.
Yeah.
Very difference between American and British spelling of boogeyman. I just noticed as well, so that was interesting.
Oh, that's bogeyman rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably called Bogeyman too. Probably in British. We have the volume turned down. You understand, dear listeners?
As creepy as the finger thing is, I wish they hadn't done so many close-up shots of it happening, because it definitely loses its like the CGI for it. Definitely, it doesn't hold up as well as I think they think it does.
Yeah, it does veer into parody a little bit.
Yeah, it has a little bit of that like adipose level of CGI.
Well, they were at least cute, so you could kind of write them off a bit.
Yeah. The fingers, you mean? Fingers. Are adorable.
The adipose.
I know. I was making a joke.
It's not the fingers.
Sorry,
I just
want to
point out.
Yes, the fingers are cute.
Yeah.
That's my.
No, Steven, I understand, because I made the joke and then there was no response, and I think I like, oh, they don't get that I'm kidding, and that was a silly joke that I was making.
I wanted to make sure that Warren was referring to the adipose, and perhaps maybe he does think that distended fingers are the cute things.
Well, I'm not going to tell you.
No. I just want to point out that Aleppo in 1380 reminds me of the city that was blown up towards the beginning of Rogue One, on whatever
Jeddah.
planet they were. Jeddah.
Yeah. I thought that same thing when I was looking at it. I wondered if they based Jeddah on Aleppo.
That could be him.
Rogue One, underrated, I think.
Oh, I agree. I'm a big fan.
We need more K2SO.
And
So good.
speaking of dark episodes, that was a dark episode in Star Wars land, but
Well, yeah.
I know. It was I don't know. It was heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go for Star Wars when it's heavy, and it was kind of heavy.
One of the best third acts of any Star Wars film, in my opinion. That war.
I would agree.
Definitely, in my opinion, the best space battle. So.
And Darth regains his mojo in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
You're right. When you said Nestine thing earlier, Chris, I didn't really pick up on what you meant, and now I do. Mm-hmm. That is totally very much a sphere from Spearhead and Terror of the Autons. Yeah.
Which I'm sure we commented on back in the day.
Maybe.
And the reason for that is it's cheap.
February,
just like it was back then.
I do love the little gag of her tossing it in the air and catching it and making things shake around a bit. That's a fun little doctory moment.
Yeah. So do they put the globe back in? So the globe, The world is in between the planets, but it's now in the globe. Is that how it works?
And isn't
I think that
isn't
might-
that kind of a little close to what we saw in Battle of
Shakespeare
Ranscraft
Code, I was
Coast?
thinking.
I first of all, I'm just impressed that you recalled that full episode title like that quickly.
I had to think about it for a second there, but
Because we had to keep...
But yeah, that's one that I always forget. And then I own the Saranga Conundrum is the other one of that. Like Series 11 has some of the worst episode titles of any era of Doctor Who. And
Stroga Conundrum is a pretty bad title.
it's a pretty bad episode. I mean, all things
Yeah.
considered, relative to the rest of the series.
Agreed. My review of that one was probably my least positive one of the whole season. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like that these two have a moment here.
Yeah, and I wrote about this, but I like that he's not just like cured. Like this is what I love about this episode is that the doctor's intervention here did not make anyone's mental illness go away or cause anyone's depression to be solved. Like he still has to put in the work to go to therapy and deal with it. And like I like the element of the monsters that are created by her nightmares are still threatening and they're real. It's like a legitimacy of like, just because something is happening in your brain with mental illness doesn't mean that it's not a legitimate threat or an actual thing you need to be concerned about or get help for. And I think that this episode did a great job of that kind of stuff.
But of course, there's all the negative reaction to the Doctor when Graham starts talking about his, fears of cancer returning. People didn't like her apparent ambivalence.
I liked it.
I loved
Yeah.
it. She's an alien. She can't relate to what he's talking about directly. So of course she's not going to have a common foothold.
I didn't even read it that way. Like I definitely, the alienness is definitely there, but I think it's that she just not got the capacity right now to handle that kind of like grief in a way. Like she's still kind of recharging herself.
Well,
and, like,
when we get there, she'll even say, I'm going to stand by the console and I'm listening, but I may not react, or whatever wording she uses.
I'm gonna in a few minutes. I'm gonna think of the thing that I should have said
Yeah.
now.
I
it's the vulnerability on her part that I was impressed by.
That too, and I also think that their relationship, as has sort of been like, with the way that Graham's been joking around a bit, and her way of dealing with that is to diffuse the situation a bit, which I think she kind of does, kind of throwing the humor back at him to sort of like, trying to lighten the mood a little bit. I feel like that those two aren't the kind to have a heart to heart, perhaps especially after he said he was going to kill for Grace at the Battle of Ranscraft the previous season.
I also think that one thing I didn't pick up on at the time because I hadn't seen Haunting of Villa Diodati yet, but now that I watched it again, I noticed that like she says, I'm going to think of what the right thing to say was, and then the next time we see her, she runs up and says Frankenstein, and so it's a natural progression that she's basically saying, oh, you're scared of this thing, so my way of trying to help you solve it is I'm going to take you to somewhere where people are telling ghost stories. Like it's a really interesting way of setting up the next episode as kind of her attempt to solve Graham's anxiety, which is that moment with her is what I think is a great example of a moment of Jodie's Doctor that I don't think would have played with any of the, at least the modern era Doctor. I don't think that having Eccleston or Tennant or Smith or Capaldi delivering those same lines when she does would have come across the way it does with her.
That's a good point. And here's Yaz learning to become a police officer. Back when we thought police officers were like kind, responsible protectors of the peace.
Yeah.
Well, as is. Let's put that on. This person seems to be.
Yeah. I was thinking about the fact that this is literally a scene of a cop being sent out to be a crisis counselor for someone. Like a thing that people are trained to be crisis counselors, but instead it's on this cop who just luckily happens. If this is an American cop, she might have a gun, and this might actually be a lot more terrifying of a scene. Because it's a British situation, it's like, oh, at least this cop doesn't have a gun to come out and shoot this.
Yeah, like why are you making your parents worry? Why are you running away? Why are you doing this? Why are you putting everyone through all this trouble? That could have been the response.
I'm just going to shoot you to solve the problem.
On top of everything else, I like how the cop herself is a South Asian woman, so that Yaz can see, maybe this future for her, which she ends up doing as a cop.
It gives you a better, like a grounded reason as to why Yaz is a cop on the show, which is good because it's something where like it doesn't really. It's because it's not explored much in the first series because she just runs away with the doctor and we never see her as a cop again. This at least gives that, like, it gives her more of a dimension to her backstory.
Yeah. And also it probably helps that the cop says, I love what I do. And that seems to hit Yaz.
Yeah.
And I love the scene with her handing her the 50p coin.
I do that. And I also like that, we cut to her thinking about it. Like, her sister's left and she's just alone thinking about it. And then we cut to clearly a different day. So, like, she has still been thinking about this a while. It's not like she immediately decided, let's go visit that cop again.
Yeah.
I like that some time has passed. I like that she remembers.
She flippin' does remember.
Flippin' cats, I say. Wasn't expecting a survival reference today, but you got it. You got it. It's such a nice moment, actually.
Yeah, it's really sweet. I forgot to mention this earlier. A moment that I really liked way earlier in the episode is on the topic of the seriousness about mental illness. I like that when Ryan's playing video games with T-Bone, he looks over and realizes that T-Bone's having a moment. He doesn't say, like, are you okay? Is something wrong? What's going on? He just says, I'm going to go make tea. And I like that, like, moment of, like, I can do something in the immediate period right now to help out and give him space to talk to me instead of just, like, immediately launching into finding, like, it's very clear a moment where T-Bone has had problems in the past and Ryan's aware of them. And this is, like, an intimacy in their friendship. And I was a huge fan of that moment.
Yeah, it's like he's not like forcing it out of him. Like you're right. Let's create a comfortable situation for you to tell me when you are comfortable, as opposed to what's wrong with you, what's the matter, can I help? Like putting the onus on the person who's actually going through the issues.
Yeah. See, this moment feels so sincere to me, and I definitely think I would have been interested to see another Doctor actor doing this moment, because this feels very Jodie for me. But I'm not saying they couldn't have, but I don't think it would have read as warm as it does here.
Yeah, it's warm but distant. I feel like Capaldi would have been, as I said earlier, cynical and dismissive. Perhaps Matt Smith would have just sort of like clapped his hands and like go talk to Rory or go talk to Amy, because there's always sort of two people in his TARDIS.
Yeah.
Go talk to Handles.
Yeah.
Talk to I mean, to your point,
Always talk to Handles.
Capaldi is the doctor who made fun of a small child for being on medication for her mental illness. So I do, and Capaldi is my doctor, but that is a moment that I wish had not happened.
That is a thing that has grown on me since watching it at first. Yeah. It didn't hit me right when I saw it, but in reading your article, Riley, I sort of think, oh right, that's what happened, wasn't it? That's right.
Yeah, that was my episode. That was my 55 of that season. So I very much there's at least one every year, and that was that one for me. So
I don't think you were alone, but you might have had a different reason.
I had a few, but yeah.
Yeah. I do like this talk too. The fact that they're thinking like, what do we do? Like our friends are aging at different rates. They're changing.
I very much expect Ryan to depart the show at Christmas. Or New Year's, whatever that special runs. I feel like Ryan's leaving. I just have this is based entirely on my speculation. This is not me spoiling anything. This is 100% me theorizing.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like this season has been setting up Ryan's departure pretty clearly.
Kind of has. The rumors at the time, I'm sure people have heard of that both Graham and Ryan are leaving at the end of the Christmas special. Who knows? We know nothing.
This was me speaking not at all based on rumors. This was me just talking about the way the dialogue has been presented throughout the season.
Mm-hmm. It's a natural thing, They're laying the groundwork, which if they're leaning towards like just people leaving the TARDIS out of their own free will, I look forward to it as opposed to
love it. I would love it.
Yeah. Separating them by dimensions or killing them off in the future, all this.
Or marrying them to some Time Lord for no reason.
There's a lot of ways to get companions off shows. So whenever that happens, long may that day arrive. I hope they do it well.
Nice little sneak peek at Villa Diodati, which is one of the better episodes of the season. So
well, this one was a good one too, Riley. And your presence on this podcast made it so while watching it again. So thank you for joining us again. Where on the internet? You're doing lots of things, Riley. You're writing, you're podcasting. This is going out in mid-November, so if you have things to plug away. What's going on in your life right now?
I am on, as you mentioned earlier, I am on the Doctor Who role-playing game podcast, The Game of Rassilon, which we are actually... I just got permission, according to a text, that I can talk about this. Coming up very soon, as you all know, there's the Doctor Who Day. So at this time, if anyone's already a listener of our show, we have just wrapped our second season. So for those who don't know, it's a tabletop role-playing game podcast, so very much similar to Erica's show Total Party Kill, and also like The Adventure Zone, where it's people actually playing a role-playing game and recording it and editing it so it's bearable to listen to. And we are
editing
playing
out the 5 minutes of people explaining the rules and that.
Yeah. We're playing the Cubicle 7 Doctor Who role-playing game, and we've been playing for 2 seasons now, and I play the role of the Doctor. And a friend of the show, Dan Peck, is playing one of my companions, Travis Killian. And then we have a new cast member this year, Kate Leigh, who's playing a character named Carrie, who has been a lot of fun. And then our GM is Ben Padden, and we have producer Michael Nixon, who plays a lot of characters, including a male regeneration of Romana named Roman, which has been a lot of fun.
Sweet.
So yeah, we've had a lot of fun. We've played 2 seasons of it so far. We've done our own version of the Master. We create it as a nebulous future incarnation of the Doctor. We haven't put an actual number on the Doctor, so that way we can be a little bit untethered from whatever the continuity of the show currently is, and we don't like
Just like the show currently is.
Yeah, which is, but that's the thing. When we started the show, that was not part of the continuity. True. So we made it so that my Doctor was a future version of the Doctor. Now we could have made it like any past version. It would have made it a lot easier. But so we just got to the end of a kind of a 2-season arc. That was like the original arc of our show. It dealt with shockingly Rassilon. That's the game of the Rassilon. But yeah, we just finished that season, that arc, and so we're at the end of our second season, and we just recorded. This is the longest plug ever. I apologize. We just recorded, and it's actually, I can mention it here, a Doctor Who Day special. We originally were going to do a live show this year for Christmas and make it our Christmas special, because live shows can't happen right now. Ew. We course corrected, and we're like, well, you know what, like, releasing a podcast on Christmas Day is going to get lost in the mix, whatever, so let's do something a little bit different. And so we are doing a special that's going to drop on Doctor Who Day, and it's going to be, I can say this now, we got brought in comedian Joseph Scrimshaw to play the Doctor prior to my Doctor, and so we've done a 2-Doctor special. And so we just had a lot of fun on Sunday playing a round of this game where we have 2 Doctors playing off each other, and it was a super blast to record. So, and I don't think it's one that you need to have heard the other episodes of the series to get. Like, it's kind of its own standalone thing. There's a couple of things that tie into the overall plot, but it's not something where it'll ruin the plot for you if you listen to it. So
that is so cool. So you're basically doing your own version of Day of the Doctor in a way, with a previously unseen Doctor, but in the form of one Joseph Scrimshaw.
Well, not completely unseen, but yeah. We actually, because we just did an episode that was sort of my Heaven Sent, where we did an episode where it was just, because of I was in Ohio for the summer, it was hard to record as the whole group, so we did an episode that was essentially a one-hander with my Doctor, right. But we had a couple of moments where there was monologues from previous Doctors, and we have a lot of fun guests coming in to read the parts of those Doctors, and so Joseph read a little bit of his Doctor's lines, because we've described him physically before, but yeah, we began the show with my Doctor, so it was really interesting to have him come in, and I had no idea what his personality was going to be like, and so it was really fun in the moment improvising these scenes to then as I described it, have to figure out what his personality was like and have to figure out why they irritated my Doctor. So that was a fun moment to get through.
It's like a podcast where you're playing the role-playing game, but it's also like basically kind of Doctor Who improv at the same time.
Yeah, it's basically a Doctor Who improv show that is somewhat dictated by dice. Like, that's kind of how we describe it.
That's perfect.
Ben and Michael, they produce the show together, and they kind of develop the storylines. So they kind of come with a rough framework of what the show is going to be. Although we have completely derailed a lot of their plans on multiple occasions. But yeah, so they kind of they pick a setting. They'll pick what the monster or threat is, and then they kind of just let us run loose and talk to characters and figure stuff out, and often make a lot of speeches and audio versions of whipping my hands around and making things happen and be clever. So it's been super fun. It's the closest I'll ever get to getting to play the Doctor, and so I really much adore it. So
That's very cool. As come out the special, the Doctor Who Day special, coming out November 23rd. So,
and the first 2 seasons are all on iTunes and all wherever you can find podcasts. So the show is called The Game of Rassilon, and check it out. There's 2 seasons. We're gonna launch a 3rd season early next year. When the seasons are new, we drop every other Wednesday. So there's about 20 to 22 or 3 episodes that you can go through at this point to get into. So
very cool. All right, then. Where can people find you on Twitter? If you want to be found, that is.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Riley J. Silverman. I'm on Instagram at Riley Silverman. And obviously, you can find a lot of my nerdy writing at Nerdist as well, including that interview with the doctors that we talked about earlier.
That thing you just dropped in there when you talked to 3 of the most recent 4 doctors on. Yeah, of course, that old chestnut. Let
me just name drop the doctor.
Well, technically, Stephen was the one who named it for you, so.
Well...
No, I mean, I definitely did in the middle of the commentary. So.
It's worthy of mention. It's worthy of mention.
Also fair.
All right. Next week, you saw it. The Haunting of Villa Diodati is our episode commentary next week. So do join us for that, everyone, as we carry on through November. Hey, we'll be coming up close to Doctor Who Day next week. So that'll be fun and exciting as well. So join us for that, won't you? Until then, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
Chris in Edmonton.
Riley in Los Angeles.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com. Follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro. Subscribe to us on iTunes and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.